Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. We continue with our studying of Al-Usool Ath-Thalaatha, the three fundamental principles. However, Ikhwa, before we begin studying, I urge you to come closer, inshallah, so there's no gaps in front of me. Now I'm filling these gaps. In last week's lesson, we began studying Thalathat Al-Usool. Previously, we've gone through the introduction to the Risala and also the author. And then after we covered the Muqaddimat, or the introductions that the author mentions before mentioning Al-Usool Ath-Thalaatha. And Al-Usool Ath-Thalaatha refer to which thing or which questions?
The questions.
Then the three questions in the grave, which are? Man Rabbuk, wa ma dinuk, wa man nabiyuk. So the first muqaddimah, the first introduction that the author mentioned was regarding the importance of al-ilm. And how did he define al-ilm? How did the author define al-ilm?
Ma'rifatullah, ma'rifatu nabiyhi, wa ma'rifatu din al-Islam.
Bil-adillah hasan. Meaning this is the knowledge which is an obligation upon every single Muslim. Knowing Allah, knowing His Prophet, and knowing the religion of Islam with adillah. And in terms of knowing the religion of Islam with adillah, or knowing Allah, knowing the Prophet, knowing the religion of Islam with adillah, what does it mean? And how much do you have to memorize from the Qur'an? How many ahadith do you have to memorize in order to fulfill bil adillah?
You simply have to see the evidence and have yaqeen in it, as long as it's from the Quran, the authentic sunnah. In terms of actually memorizing it, it's not a necessity.
So as long as your aqeedah is based upon seeing the evidence. Now, so for example, why do you pray 5 times a day? Allah says, aqimus salah. Khalas. Now you have based your aqeedah of salah being wajib upon an evidence from the Quran. Let's say you forget this evidence, no problem. But it cannot be based upon blind following. Now it has to be based upon an evidence that you have seen. Then after this, we went through the importance of al-ilm, wal-amal, wal-da'wah, and as-sabr. What's the definition of as-sabr? What's the definition of as-sabr?
Habs al-nafs.
Habs al-nafs. And what are the 3 types of as-sabr?
To be patient on implementing the commands of Allah.
As-sabru ala ta'atillah.
To be patient upon diverting yourself away from
staying away from the
disobedience of Allah, and being patient upon the qadr of Allah.
نعم الصبر على طاعة الله والصبر عن معصية الله والصبر على أقدار الله. And then after this, the author mentioned another muqaddimah, and that is 3 matters that every single Muslim and Muslimah must know and understand, and that these 3 matters, they underline the whole of the religion of Islam. Now, so who can summarize for me the first one? So this is the second muqaddimah.
Allah created us with a purpose.
Now,
so that was Tawheed al-Rububiyyah.
yeah. So Allah created us with a purpose. What's that purpose?
To worship Him, to test us, and to know Him and His names and attributes.
Accent, to learn about Him. And how do we know this purpose of these objectives? Who told us?
Allah.
Through the sending of messengers and revelation. So the first important principle is Allah subhanahu created us and provided for us and sustains us. This is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And because Allah subhanahu is al-Hakim, the all-wise, then He does not do things out of jest or play or vanity or without any purpose. So His creation of us must be for a purpose, because He's Al-Hakim. And Al-Hakim does not do things without a purpose or a reason. However, that purpose, has it been left to every person's own understanding? Is it subjective to each person? No. It is black and white. Because He sent prophets and messengers and revealed books to convey the purpose to us. So now when we look in to the teachings of the prophets and the messengers and the books, then we find 3 objectives. To worship Him alone, to learn about Him, and to be tested. Everything is a test. I think in the previous lesson we mentioned the details and we mentioned the evidences. And therefore, like the author said, فَمَنْ أَطَاعَهُ دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ وَمَنْ عَصَاهُ دَخَلَ النَّارِ. So whoever obeys the prophets in fulfilling those objectives enters into Jannah. And whoever disobeys the prophets in following those objectives and implementing them will enter into the fire. And this risala in general, this point specifically is very important, because nowadays in the UK especially, this is an agenda that some of the teachers and people who are kind of involved at that level, they've told me about. That there's a clear agenda from the government to tell the Muslims that nobody can say whether your Islam is right or wrong. Your Islam is whatever it means to you. Now, and this is what Christianity has become like now. Your spirituality, your religion is whatever it means to you, that's fine. And they want to do the same thing with Islam. And what that means is that we decide our purpose. I decide what's halal or haram. We as a people decide what's right or wrong, as opposed to this asl which we have studied. So this asl is important that we teach and understand and memorize. The second principle that underpins the whole religion, what is it?
Allah does not accept shirk, He only accepts tawheed.
No. Allah. So if our purpose is to worship Allah, then in that ibadah of Allah does not accept a shirk. And it does not matter who the shirk is with. Meaning, if a person associates an angel with Allah, and an angel is a creation of Allah, or if a person associates a prophet with Allah, and the prophets are the most pious people, or anything else besides Allah along with Him, then all of it is shirk and kufr. And what's the daleel that Allah subhanahu does not accept any form of shirk? What's the daleel that Allah subhanahu does not accept any form of shirk?
The Masjid are for Allah subhanahu.
Say in Arabic, even if you read it. Anybody else? وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. If you can't memorize the matan, then at the least try to memorize the adillah and memorize the principles. So for example, these 3 matters, know them. Even if it's an English program, know them and try to memorize the evidences. That's the minimum that you should try to memorize. Allah subhanahu said, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And where is the shahid in this ayah? Ahada, anybody. Allah subhanahu said that the places of worship are for Allah alone, so do not invoke besides Allah ahada, anybody. La malakun muqarrab wa la nabiyyun mursal, like the author said. Neither an angel nor a great prophet. طيب, what's the third principle which underpins all of our religion? Ahsant, al-wala wal-bara. And what is the asl of al-wala wal-bara? What does al-wala wal-bara go down to? And what's the asl?
Is it that a person of tawheed wouldn't support the people of
It goes even deeper than that. It goes back to something. It goes back to al-muhabba wal-bughd. It goes back to love and hatred. It goes back to love and hatred in the heart. So if a Muslim supports a mushrik over another Muslim with muhabba in his heart for what they are on, this is kufrun akbar. And if a Muslim supports a mushrik over a Muslim for some dunya reason, he's been bribed, he wants to get some type of state authority, he's been pressurized, then this is a major sin, but it is not kufrun akbar. Because Allah subhanahu said, لا تجد قوما يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر يوادون من حد الله ورسوله. You will never find a people who have iman in Allah and the final day, yuwaduna. And yuwaduna meaning from mawadda. And mawadda is love in the heart. You'll never find them loving those who are enemies to Allah and His Messenger. طبعا, the mawadda which is mentioned here is al-mahabba fillah. Now, so for example, it's permitted for a Muslim man to marry a woman who's kitabiyya and she's upon her kufr, and naturally between husband and wife there's muhabba. This is which is natural. You have attraction and love and feelings towards your wife. So this is muhabba tabi'iyya. You'll find a father who's a Muslim and he loves his son even if his son is non-Muslim, and a daughter with regards to her mother even though they're upon kufr, those upon Islam. But this is muhabba tabi'iyya, and this is something which is natural. Also, you may find between two neighbours. You have a neighbour who's a Muslim and you have a neighbour who is a non-Muslim, and that non-Muslim neighbour is a very good neighbour towards him, and therefore he has some form of affection towards him as his neighbour. This is muhabba tabi'iyya. Now we're talking about loving and hating for the sake of Allah. So these are the three principles which undermine our religion. Then after this, the author mentioned the third muqaddimah, and that is regarding al-hanifiyya and al-tawheed and al-shirk. So al-hanifiyya, it is derived from the word al-hanaf. And what does al-hanaf mean in Arabic?
To turn away.
In Arabic? No, in Arabic.
Al-Mayl.
Al-Mayl. Al-Mayl means to bend towards something or to bend away from something. So therefore, al-Hanifiyya, it is al-Milla al-Ma'ila an al-Shirk wa mabni ala tawheed. The path which bends away from shirk and is built upon or based upon al-Tawheed. And it is Millatu Ibrahim. It is Millatu Ibrahim. It is the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the author said, "An ta'bud Allah wahdahu mukhlisan lahu ad-din." That you worship Allah alone with ikhlas in the deen. طيب. In the Qur'an, if a person says that if Tawheed is so important, if Tawheed is so fundamental, then why does Allah not mention the word Tawheed in the Qur'an? Now, if Tawheed is so important, then why does Allah not mention Tawheed in the Qur'an? What do you think, brothers? What do you think? What do you think? It's a valid question. Now, if it's so important, why doesn't Allah mention Tawheed in the Qur'an?
Every time ibadah is mentioned, it seems to hit.
No, because Allah subhanahu mentions ibadah in the Quran, and ibadah is synonymous with Tawheed. Ibadah is Tawheed. And this is why even when we define Tawheed, and the most basic definition of Tawheed, what did the author say? Ifradullah bil ibadah, to single out Allah with ibadah. So ibadah means Tawheed, Tawheed means al-ibadah. And when we say Tawheed, there's three types. The second type, which is the core of Tawheed, is Tawheed al-ibadah, or Tawheed al-ubudiyya, which we call Tawheed al-uluhiyya. It's exactly the same thing. And this was the statement of Ibn Abbaas. وَمَعْنَا يَعْبُدُونَ يُوَحِّدُونَ. طيب. What's the definition of Tawheed? What's the definition, the ta'rif of Tawheed in Arabic?
Ifradullah bil ibadah.
Ahsant. Ifradullah bil ibadah. And this is the intended Tawheed in the Quran. The Tawheed which is intended in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Messenger is Tawheed al-Ibadah. Ifradullah bil ibadah. Now, but for further study, we say it's three types: Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, Al-Asma wa Sifat, as is known. And what is the definition of a shirk? The ta'rif of shirk. Now, da'watu ghayrillahi ma'allah is for somebody to invoke others besides Allah along with Allah. For somebody to invoke others besides Allah along with Allah. And then after this, and this was last week's lesson, we began studying the first asl. The author said, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ فَقُلْ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. If it is said to you, who is your Rabb? Then say, Allah is my Rabb. And what is the meaning of Ar-Rabb? What's the meaning of Ar-Rabb?
Is it the nurturer, provider, creator?
Naam. Al-Khaliq, Al-Malik, Al-Raziq, Al-Mudabbir. Ar-Rabb is the creator, the sustainer, the owner, and the controller. Naam. And this is why when we define Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, what do the ulama say? Ifradullahi bil-Khalq, wal-Mulk, wal-Rizq, wal-Tadbir. They mention the same thing. And because this is what makes the Rabb. Naam. And the husband, the father is Rabbul Bayt. The father is the Lord of the house, the Lord of the manor. Naam. It's allowed to say, there's no problem. You can say Fulan Rabbul Bayt, that the father is the owner of the house. Why do we describe the father as being a Rabbul Bayt? Because he's the Raziq in that house, he's the Malik in the house, he's the Mudabbir in that house, he's the one who sustains the house, nurtures the house, looks after the house, maintains it, controls it. His word is final. So this is understood from the word Ar-Rabb. And the author said that why is Allah our Rabb? Because Rabbani wa Rabba Jamil Alameen. Because he's the one who created, nurtured, sustains, controlled me and the rest of creation. طبعا, what's the intent behind affirming Allah is Ar-Rabb? What's the intent behind affirming that Allah is the Rabb? What's the intent behind affirming that Allah is Ar-Rabb? No.
Everything besides Allah is Alam.
No, the author said that's Sahih, but something.
Is it that when you affirm Allah's rububiyyah, it necessitates for you to affirm
No.
Allah's uluhiyyah as well?
Yeah. Because the author said, فَإِذَا قِيلَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ? And then he mentioned Rabbi Allah, he said, وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي. And therefore he is the one who I worship. So the intent behind affirming Allah is the Rabb, meaning the Khaliq, Malik, Mudabbir, Raziq, is not to merely affirm it, but to affirm that therefore he has the exclusive right to ibadah and we have to worship him. Now that is the intent. And who's memorized the principle in Arabic? Ahsant. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah yastalzim Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. That affirming the Rububiyyah of Allah, affirming Allah is your Rabb, it necessitates from you to worship him alone. Otherwise, there's no benefit in affirming that he is our creator. Now, because even the mushrikun of Quraysh, they did not deny that Allah is the creator. They all affirmed he is the creator, but they never worshipped him alone. So every ayah you find in the Qur'an which mentions any aspect of the rububiyyah of Allah or the creation of Allah, its intent is to worship him alone. Its intent is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Where is the evidence in the Qur'an that Rabb is one of the names of Allah? Where is the evidence in the Qur'an that Rabb is one of the names of Allah? Now, what do you think? Yeah. Easy, I know. 100% you know it. 100% you know the evidence. What's the evidence that Rabb is one of the names of our Creator? 100% you know it. And I think you mentioned it maybe 20 minutes ago. You mentioned it.
Prayer.
And you mentioned it 4 times.
Allah was.
Huh?
Surah.
Yeah. Which ayah? Which ayah is a Rabb mentioned? If you didn't mention it, your salah is not valid. So which ayah is it? That's it. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praises for Allah, Rabb al-Alameen. So this affirms that Allah is Ar-Rabb and one of his names is Ar-Rabb. And the author said, وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي لَيْسَ لِي مَعْبُودٌ سِوَاهُ. And he is my object of ibadah, my deity of worship, and there's none others besides him who I worship. But this is the intent behind affirming that he is your Rabb. If somebody says to you, how have you come to know of Allah being your Rabb? How do you know Allah is your Rabb? What's our answer? If he said to you,
Is it because he created everything?
no. He said, بِآيَاتِهِ وَمَخْلُوقَاتِهِ, through his signs and through his creation. And his signs such as what? What does the author mention? Which signs?
The sun and the moon.
The sun and the moon and the night and the day. And which aspects of creation? The heavens and the earth. Why did the author differentiate between ayat and makhluqat, even though the ayat of Allah are from his makhluqat? Even though the ayat of Allah are from his makhluqat?
The ayat are subject to change, whereas the creation stays.
Now. Even though all of them are makhluqat, but the ayat are more. The ayat indicate his creation with more emphasis because they change, and anything which changes requires some type of force which makes it change. Now, anything which changes requires force which makes it change. So this book, it wasn't written without a writer, sahih, and this masjid wasn't built without a builder, and like this, that degree, it was not attained without somebody studying the decree. وَلِكُلِّ مَفْعُولٍ فَاعِلٍ. And every maf'ul requires a fa'il. Every fi'l requires a fa'il. And these are universal laws. Every fi'l requires a fa'il. And like this, those ayat of Allah which are changing, it's because there's a force out there which is caused to change, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ayat are more indicative of the qudra and the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And where is the evidence that the usloob of the Qur'an is to affirm the rububiyyah of Allah in order to affirm the uluhiyyah of Allah? And where is the evidence in the Qur'an for this principle? Tawheed al-rububiyyah yastalzim tawheed al-uluhiyyah. Now from the matan, we're talking about from the matan, from the matan.
يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم.
Ahsant. The ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء, to the end of the ayah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins by mentioning His creation, His rububiyyah, and then He ends the ayah with فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So do not make partners for Allah, meaning in worship. So it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that these assets of rububiyyah which I am mentioning them in order for it to affirm the uluhiyyah of Allah. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا. And the beginning of the يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اعْبُدُوا. And obviously this ayah is the first command and the first nahi in the Mus'haf. Now if you begin with Surah Al-Fatiha and you continue reading, the first command in the Qur'an is what? Ya ayyuhan nas u'budu. O people, worship your Lord. And what's the first nahi in the Qur'an? فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا. Do not ascribe partners to Allah. So in the Mus'haf, the first command is the command of At-Tawheed in the Mus'haf. And the first nahi for prohibition is against ash-shirk. Surah Fatiha and the other ayat which come before, there is information, but there's no command in there until this ayah it comes. So this is the evidence for. Now also, Ibn Kathir, what did Ibn Kathir say?
قال ابن كثير الخالق لهذه الأشياء هو المستحق للعبادة.
The one who created all of these things, he's the one who is deserving of worship. Meaning Tawheed al-Rububiyyah yastalzim Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Now, what are the different names for Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah? I think I mentioned 4 names that the ulama use interchangeably for Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. I mentioned as a side benefit.
Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah.
So Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah, what else? Tawheed al-Ilahiyyah and Tawheed al-Ibadah. And all of them refer to the same thing. The sole right of Allah to worship. Tawheed al-Ubudiyyah, Tawheed al-Ibadah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah and Tawheed al-Ilahiyya. There's also a different classification which is mentioned by Ibn Qayyim and some of the ulama, and that is to divide Tawheed into 2 categories, Tawheed al-Ma'rifah wa Tawheed al-Talab al-Qasd. Now that's a different point inshallah. Then the author rahimahullah, he mentioned certain types of ibadah which requires a tawheed. He said like Islam, mean the apparent actions of ibadah, and Iman, meaning the hidden actions of ibadah, and Al-Ihsan, whether it's ihsan towards Allah, ihsan towards creation. He said وَمِنْهُ الدُّعَاء والخوف والرجاء والتوكل والرغبة والرهبة والخشوع والخشية والإنابة والاستعانة والاستعاذة والاستغاثة والذبح والنذر. So these are an example of some of the ibadat. The point is, all of them that Allah subhanahu ordered with, Tawheed is an obligation in every single ibadah. How do we know that something is ibadah? How can we recognize that something is ibadah? I think I mentioned 4 or 5 different indicators that something is ibadah. No, who's written them down?
If there's a specific reward for
Okay, so if Allah subhanahu attaches a reward for doing an act of, for doing a particular action, it's ibadah.
And if you leave it and then you get a sin for leaving it.
So if Allah subhanahu attaches a punishment or a sin for abandoning an action, then that means doing it is ibadah.
Allah praises the people who actually do it.
If Allah subhanahu praises the people of those actions, it is ibadah.
If it's ordered in the Qur'an or Sunnah.
If Allah commands with that action, it's ibadah. If Allah subhanahu forbids abandoning it, it is ibadah.
If Allah affirms His love for the action.
Now, if Allah subhanahu loves love for its action or praises that action, it is ibadah. Why? Because what's the definition of ibadah which we gave from Ibn Taymiyyah? No? The ta'rif in Arabic. The ta'rif in Yeah, that's some of the التأله والتذلل لله محبة وتعظيما. What did Ibn Taymiyyah say? اسم جامع. Memorize inshallah. اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه من الأقوال والأفعال الظاهرة والباطنة. He said, Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, العبادة اسم جامع. It is a comprehensive term. لِكُلِّ مَا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَيَرْضَى. For everything which Allah loves and is pleased with. Yani even if you memorize that, that's sufficient. اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضى. It is a comprehensive term for everything which Allah loves and He is pleased with. And then this is the point. When I said, how do we know that something is ibadah? The question we are asking is, how do we know that Allah loves or is pleased with that action? That's the actual question. Because ibadah is what Allah loves and is pleased with. So how do we know that Allah loves or is pleased with that thing? He commands it. He forbids leaving it. He praises it. He praises His people. He attaches a reward. He attaches a punishment, etc. This is how we know that Allah is pleased with it, and therefore it's ibadah, and therefore directing it to other than Allah is a shirk. Now, so this is the line of thought that you need to follow. First of all, Allah created us for ibadah. Secondly, ibadah is everything which Allah loves or is pleased with. How do we know that Allah loves a particular matter or is pleased with it? Through those indicators which I have mentioned. Therefore, if it is ibadah, صَرْفُهَا لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ شِرْكٌ وَكُفْرٌ. Directing it to other than Allah is shirk and al-kufr.
Ismun Jamin is a comprehensive term.
نعم اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه. نعم mentioned by Ibn Taymiyyah in his book Al-Ubudiyyah. Okay, and I think this is where we stopped in last week's lesson. So now, and then the author said, after listing those ibadat, كلها لله تعالى. All of them are for Allah alone, due to the saying of Allah, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. That the places of worship are for Allah alone, so do not ascribe partners to Allah. He said, فَمَنْ صَرَفَ مِنْهَا شَيْءٍ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ مُشْرِكٌ كَافِرٌ. So whoever directs any aspect of ibadah to other than Allah, then he is mushrik kafir. Mushrik kafir means shirk akbar, kufr akbar. And the evidence is وَمَنْ يَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ لَا بُرْهَانَ لَهُ بِهِ فَإِنَّمَا حِسَابُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. That whoever invokes others besides Allah, for which he has no evidence, then his reckoning is with his Lord. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. The disbelievers will never be successful. So notice how Allah subhanahu connected between invoking others besides Allah to لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Meaning, whoever invokes others besides Allah, then that person is amongst the kafirun. And I mentioned last time that there are two strategies if you want to warn a person against shirk in a particular act of worship. There are two strategies. What are they?
Is there a general way when you first prove that it's an ibadah and then you show that any ibadah to any
No.
Allah?
So first is general evidences. You establish the principle that directing worship to other than Allah is shirk, like this ayah or the other ayat. And then you affirm that that action is ibadah, because Allah's ordered with it, or He has rewarded, etc. And then the specific one is mentioning a specific ayah or hadith in which Allah and His Messenger warns against directing it to other than Allah. Now this is what we're going to go through today. So then after this point, then the author is going to go through the ibadat which he just mentioned. And the first ibadah he begins with is a dua. We read from فَمَنْ صَرَفَ مِنْهَا شَيْئًا.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فمن صرف منها شيئا لغير الله فهو مشرك كافر. والدليل قوله تعالى: ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وفي الحديث: الدعاء مخ العبادة. والدليل قوله تعالى: وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخلين.
So this is now the first ibadah, which is a dua. And a dua we translate it as supplication. And he said that in the hadith, الدعاء مخ العبادة. Dua is the core of ibadah. And mukh, when we use mukh towards a human, it means the brain, and the mind. Meaning that dua is the core or the essence of ibadah. And this is why ulama say that there are two types of dua. There are two types of dua. The first one is dua al-ibadah, and the second one is dua al-mas'ala. There are two types of dua: dua al-ibadah and dua al-mas'ala. What is dua al-mas'ala? The requests which you make, the su'al which you ask: oh Allah, give me, oh Allah, save me, oh Allah, give my child, oh Allah, bless me. These are requests which you are making for something specific. This is called dua al-mas'ala. Dua al-ibadah are your acts of worship. All of your ibadat, why are you doing them? Because you're hoping for Allah's mercy and you're hoping for Allah's forgiveness. So your salawat are a type of dua. Your zakah is a dua. Your fasting is a dua. Because if somebody said to you, why do you pray salah? You said, because I'm hoping for Allah's mercy, I'm hoping for His forgiveness. So it's a dua which you're making by way of your actions, as opposed to raising your hands and physically saying something. And so those ayat in which Allah said, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا means dua al-ibadah. The place of worship for Allah alone, فَلَا تَدْعُوا. So do not make dua to other than Allah, meaning do not make ibadah to other than Allah. Because the general meaning of dua is ibadah. And then there's dua al-mas'ala. Here we're referring to dua al-mas'ala. Now, because we are now, the author is now going to mention every specific ibadah and then mention a specific evidence that it has to be for Allah alone. So this is now utilizing the second method which we mentioned. Where's the daleel? Where's the daleel that dua should be for Allah alone? The author said, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. And your Lord has said, supplicate me and I shall answer you. So where is the evidence in this ayah? Where is the shahid in this ayah that dua is ibadah? Where is the shahid in this ayah that dua is ibadah? No?
Is it invoking?
Yeah. You have to develop the point a little bit.
Uh,
How do you recognize something is ibadah? How do you recognize something is ibadah? What do we say? We mentioned 6 things just now. Which things show us that something is ibadah?
That Allah orders.
Allah orders it, Allah is pleased with it, Allah praises it, Allah praises people, Allah mentions a reward. Which one of those indicates or mentions this ayah?
he commands it.
He commands it. Therefore, if He commands it, that means He is pleased with it and loves it. If He is pleased with and loves it, that means it is ibadah. Therefore, if it's ibadah, then directing it to other than Allah is shirk and kufr. Now, that same thought process which I mentioned. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي. Those who are too arrogant to worship me, سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. They will enter into Jahannam forever. نعوذ بالله. طبعا دعاء المسألة, we said دعاء المسألة is a request which you are asking. No? So if we say that dua is for Allah alone, meaning you can only request from Allah, then does that mean we cannot request from each other? So can I not say to you, brother, I'm feeling hungry today, can you please give me some water? Can you please give me some food? Can I not go to the doctor and say, look, I'm ill, do you have anything as a cure for me? Does that now become shirk and kufr?
You can't ask somebody for something that only Allah can give you.
No. So there are two types of dua.
One is the asbab.
Yeah.
Ask the doctor or driving or something. That one is called the asbab.
Yeah. Sahih. So, firstly, requesting from somebody that which only Allah subhanahu can give, whether that person is alive or dead, doesn't matter. Requesting from somebody that which only Allah subhanahu can give, this is shirkun and kufr. So for example, only Allah subhanahu can decree for a child to be born to you. So requesting it from a wali or a murshid or a sheikh or a person in the grave or a jinni or a shaitan or anything, this is kufr akbar. Now, requesting anything from anybody that only Allah subhanahu can give. The second is requesting something from a person who fulfills 4 conditions, and we mentioned this previously, that person is hayyun, hadirun, qadirun, sabab, as Uncle mentioned. Now, and this we studied in Al-Qaid al-Arba. Requesting something from another person who is hayyun, hadirun, qadirun, sabab. Hayyun, what does it mean? Alive. So if you ask help from a living person, then we can go on to the next conditions. But if a person asks from a person in the grave, kufr and shirk straight away. And kufr akbar. Whenever we say kufr and shirk, we mean kufr akbar, shirk akbar. Hadir, what does it mean? Hadir.
Is the ability to.
Sorry, no. Hadir.
Present.
Present. No, he's present. The meaning of present, meaning you're able to communicate to him, or he's reachable. Now, whether it's by phone, and whether it's by shouting, whether it's by email, whether he's in front of you, doesn't matter. The point is he's present. Now, so for example, a person is drowning and he sees a lifeguard from far away. He shouts out to him, save me, help me. Is this shirk? No, because the person is alive and he's present. Now, or you're in trouble and you ring the police, the fire services, you email a lawyer, for example, I need your help, you need to come and save me. There's nothing wrong with this. Why? Because they might not be physically present there, but they're reachable. You can communicate to them. The third condition is qadir. What does qadir mean?
He can do.
Now, he has the qudra, he has the ability to help you. So he's able. Hayyun, he has to be alive. Hadirun, he has to be reachable or communicable or present. And then qadirun, he has the ability to help you. So let's say if there is somebody who is alive and he is present in front of you, and then you say to him, give me a child. Now, even if he's hayyun hadirun, shirk and kufr. Why? Because he cannot give you a child, even if he's hayy and hadir. So he has to have the qudra, or you think he has the qudra. Now, or normally he would have the qudra. And just in case somebody says that, okay, if I ask somebody to help me pick up a stone or a rock, and then he's too weak to do it, is it shirk? No, because normally a human being is able to pick up a boulder. But say move a mountain, for example, or move this cloud, or no, then this becomes shirk. And then the final condition is sabab, that the one who you are asking, or the thing which you are fulfilling, has to be a cause which Allah has placed upon the earth, and you have to believe it is only a cause. For example, when I am ill, I go to a doctor, and the doctor prescribes medicine. And when I go to the doctor, I say to the doctor, can you cure me? can you cure me? I say these words, can you cure me? Why do I go to the doctor who's going to prescribe the medicine? Because I know Allah subhanahu has made a sabab, a cause for cures, medicine. And so I go to him because this is a sabab which Allah has placed upon the earth. Secondly, believing that He's only a sabab. Even when I say, can you cure me? I don't mean that you are the actual cure. I believe that you are going to prescribe that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a cure. And Allah cures me through this sabab. Allah is the one who cures me through this medicine. So, who is the one who cures? Allah subhanahu. How does Allah subhanahu cure you? Through the medicine which is the sabab, which is the universal cause which Allah has placed upon the earth. Now, another example. If a person gets married to a woman, now, and he says, I want you to bear me children. Now, I want you to bear me children. Is that shirk? Because only Allah subhanahu can bestows upon a person children? No. Because he believes and he knows that Allah subhanahu has made a sabab to have children. And what is that sabab? Is relations between the husband and the wife. So he knows that Allah subhanahu bestows the children, but He bestows it through the fulfilling of this sabab, which is nikah, and which is relations between the husband and the wife. Now, so this is not a shirk. As long as he believes that it is Allah subhanahu who is the musabbib. So there is the sabab and there is the musabbib, and then there is the natija. So the musabbib is the one who has placed those causes into effect. And the sabab is the cause, and the natija is the effect. We have cause and effect. Now, and tab'an, even that's with the decree of Allah. So how many times will a person take medicine and he's not cured? And how many times do we find people have been married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe he has more than one wife, and Allah does not decree for there to be a child. So the musabbib is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Is it shirk to call upon someone who's dead or not present, but not ask for them? For example, if a person's family member dies and goes, yeah, so and so, I love you, I miss you, would that be shirk?
No, that's not shirk. No, that's from the angle of bringing relief or comfort. Now, when Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet ﷺ, passed away, the Prophet sat at his grave in the hadith of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and he wept, and those who were around him, they wept. And when Abdurrahman ibn Auf saw the Messenger crying, he said, Hatta anta ya Rasulullah, even you cry? And the Messenger said, هذه رحمة جعلها الله في قلوب عباده. That this is a mercy which Allah has placed in the hearts of His believers, that they weep over the death of their children. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Ibrahim, inna li faqdika lamahzunun. O Ibrahim, we are saddened over your departure. Now, but this wasn't Ya Ibrahim meaning invoking the deceased. Now, and no Arab would understand that you're invoking your child. If I even in English, you might say, oh, how I miss you, and you talk about somebody who's passed away, and you're not invoking that person. Now, it's just to bring you some type of tranquility to the heart. However, at the same time, you have to protect Tawheed, and you have to be very careful that you block off the avenues of a shirk. So you wouldn't say to a Barelwi or a Sufi that it's okay to say Ya Muhammad, it's okay to say Ya Ali, it's okay to say Ya Fatima because you're missing them. No, you say no, don't say this word. It can lead to shirk. But if somebody said regarding the child who's just passed away, regarding their wife who's just passed away, their father's passed away, oh Abi, how I'm missing you, it's not shirk. No.
If you make statements like I believe in you to someone, is that a form of shirk as well?
These statements are mubham. These statements are ambiguous. So before you place a ruling on a statement or on the person who's saying the statement, you have to clarify, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say I believe in you? Now, sometimes the statement should be avoided. So we can say the statement is wrong, but as for placing a ruling upon the person, you have to ask, what did you mean? So if you meant a meaning of shirk, then it's shirk. If you said, no, I wasn't meaning that, I was meaning this, look, it's better to stay away from the statement because it's ambiguous, but you don't say that person is a kafir. Now, and this is why we said, الشرك الأصغر are الفاظ المنهي عنها are words which are forbidden because the meanings are ambiguous, not because the person intended a shirk. So when a person says, Masha Allah wa shit, whatever Allah wills and you will. What should we do tomorrow? Whatever Allah wills and you will, we'll do that tomorrow. I don't mean by this that you and Allah are equal, but the wording is ambiguous. So we stay away from the wording.
So it's really that's not cool.
No, we can say, either we can say it's shirk asghar or it's ambiguous. So you say you stay away from it. But we don't make a ruling on the person until you've clarified what was your intention behind. Because always al-alfadh al-mubhama, the words which are ambiguous, they go back to the intention of the person. Even in divorce, for example. So if a man said to his wife, if a man was angry with his wife and he said to her, leave me, or I'm leaving you. You ask him, what do you mean by I'm leaving you? Did you intend divorce by the word I'm leaving you? Or did you mean just give me some space? Now, if he intended divorce, it's divorce. Even if he did not mention Ath-Thalaatha. If you meant give me some space, then it means give me some space. Then there are the other words which are not mubhama, they are sariha. Now, if a person said, I divorce you, and then he says, no, I didn't mean divorce, I meant just give me a break. No. That word talaq is clear. There's no second meaning behind the word talaq. So alfadh mubhama are those words which have more than one meaning. That's what we mean. We say ambiguous meaning, it can mean this, this and this, then look behind the intention of the person. Now, if me and you were negotiating a price, and then I said to you, take my phone. Now, I could mean borrow my phone, or I could mean I sold you my phone. Now, this now goes back to my intention, or what we understood. But if I said, I sell you my phone, and we were negotiating, there's no second meaning to sell you my phone. It means you bought the phone off me. Al-Muhim, that is with regards to ad-du'a, and those 4 conditions apply. After this,
ودليل الخوف قوله تعالى فلا تخافوهم وخافون إن كنتم مؤمنين.
Then he mentions al-khawf, and also al-khawf is an act of ibadah. And how do we know al-khawf is an act of ibadah? Where's the shahid in this ayah? Remember the 6 indicators which I mentioned? So how do we know khawf is an act of ibadah? How do we know?
Because Allah commands us to fear Him.
Ahsan, because Allah commands us to fear Him. And there's a second indicator, that Allah praises those who fear Him by calling them mu'mineen. So here khawf being in ibadah is established because Allah orders with it, khafuni, fear me meaning fear me alone. And He praises its people, in kuntum mu'min, if you are people of al-iman. And therefore, directing al-khawf to other than Allah, it is a shirk. طيب, al-khawf, what's the definition of al-khawf? What's the definition of al-khawf? It's translated as fear. And what's the definition of al-khawf? It doesn't require a definition. Al-khawf does not require a definition. Al-ghadab does not require a definition, anger. Muhabba, love, does not require a definition. Because these things are already known. Everybody understands khawf and fear. Everybody understands muhabba. So don't think that you have to define every single term. No. Some things, if you define them, you actually make them more complicated. So if I started defining al-khawf, you think, subhanallah, I understood what it was before, now I don't understand what you're talking about. Now, same with the anger. Sometimes you find in some of the books, they start defining anger. Infi'al al-nafs, wa itharat al-dam, etc. etc. You know what anger is. We know what khawf is. We know what muhabba is. It does not need to be defined. However, what needs to be defined is the types of khawf. So khawf is 3 types. There are 3 types of khawf. Sometimes it is shirk, and sometimes it is not. Sometimes it's ibadah, and therefore directing to other than Allah is shirk, and sometimes it is not a shirk, directing it to other than Allah. So the khawf which is shirkun akbar, is the khawf which is ibadah, and this is known as khawf as-sir. This is known as khawf as-sir. And that is when a person has complete khawf in something. Now, a person has complete khawf in something, And this is what the mushrikun had towards their idols, or they have towards their awliya, as if your life and death is in the hands of that wali in the grave, or if you say something he's going to bring you misfortune or punishment or calamity. This is khawf al-sir. When it comes to Allah, it is ibadah, but or directly to other than Allah, it is a shirk. So this is khawf al-sir or khawf al-ibadah. And this is what the mushrikun had towards their idols. Allah subhanahu said on the tongue of His Messenger, وَكَيْفَ أَخَافُ مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُونَ أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ. How can I fear that which the shirk which you are committing, and you have no khawf that you are committing shirk with Allah? And then there's a second type of khawf, which is al-khawf al-jaiz. And al-khawf al-jaiz is the khawf which is permitted. It's permitted for us to khawf other creation. And this is known as al-khawf al-tabi'i. This is known as al-khawf al-tabi'i, natural fear. So is there anybody here who doesn't fear putting their hand in the fire? Is there anybody who doesn't fear a snake? Or if there was a lion in this room, would you not be scared? Is there anybody here who doesn't fear a criminal, a bandit, a robber? We fear them. There's khawf. And this khawf, it actually protects us. Now, what prevents us from approaching a fire? Our khawf. What prevents us from going too close to the edge of a mountain? Our khawf. What prevents us that if we see a snake, we'll stay away? Our khawf. So this is khawf tabi'i. This is al-khawf al-tabi'i. And then there's al-khawf al-muharram. Khawf which is haram, but it is not shirk. Fear which is haram, but it is not shirk. And that is when you fear a human being, and so you stay away from a wajib, or you commit a haram. For example, a sister, she takes off her hijab because she's embarrassed and scared of what people will say about her. We say this khawf, it's not shirk, because she's not fearing them, meaning my dunya will finish, my life is in their hands, they're going to bring me bad luck and calamity. No, but her fear and her embarrassment of them stops her wearing the hijab, and the hijab is wajib. Al-khawf al-muharram is that the time for salah has come and you're too embarrassed to pray out to college. Say, no, this fear is not allowed, this fear is haram. You're not allowed to have this level of fear. طبعا, if it's a real threat and a real danger to a person's life, then you can leave something which is wajib or do something which is haram. In fact, a person can even say a word of kufr. If it's an actual threat to your life, meaning somebody holds a gun to your head, or somebody says, no, I'm going after your children's blood, then you can even say a word of kufr or leave something which is wajib. Because Allah subhanahu said, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Except for the one who is coerced, but his heart is tranquil with iman. So somebody physically threatens you with your life, says, say you disbelieve in Allah. You have iman in your heart, tranquility in your heart, you say the word to save your life. This is from the Quran. Now, any question?
So you know how you said it's a form of ibadah to fear Allah?
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's say if you're just feeling scared of Allah in your heart, of doing something, you get like good deeds for that?
No. Khawf is ibadah qalbiyah. It is an ibadah which takes place in the heart. So your fear, your feeling of fearing Allah and therefore staying away from a sin is an act of ibadah. Now, and this is one thing, it's a good point you mentioned. The reward for staying away from a sin is twofold. Firstly, that you don't get the punishment for doing that sin, and secondly, you are rewarded for staying away from the sin. Now, but if you do it for the fear of Allah, and I'll give you an example of this. Let's say there's a bottle of alcohol here, akramakumullah. There's a bottle of alcohol. Me as a Muslim, and I think like the majority of you grew up as Muslims, if you grew up in as Muslims, alhamdulillah, we've never touched alcohol. It's repulsive to us. Even if it was placed in front of us, it'd be no attraction to us in the first place. Never mind for the sake of Allah, just by nature. because we find it repulsive, and the smell is repulsive, and the effects are repulsive, and we know the dangers, and we've never touched it. So now, if I stay away from this alcohol, because I find the smell repulsive, and I can't imagine what the taste would be, and culturally we find it repulsive, and we've never done it, then my action of staying away from it is not ibadah. Meaning I'm not rewarded for staying away from it. At least I don't get a punishment for it. So it doesn't mean that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. At the least, by way of my culture, and by way of my upbringing, and my family, and my father's threat, etc., I've stayed away from this thing. But do I get the reward for staying away from it? No. Another person, he stays away from it because Allah made it haram. Along with it's repulsive and there's health concerns and I don't want to waste money and it's not my culture, but ultimately because Allah subhanahu made it haram upon me. And if I do it, then there's punishment from Allah. Here it becomes ibadah. Now, so always, muharramat are those things, if you stay away from them for the sake of Allah, you are rewarded. But it's for the sake of Allah. Uncle?
Yes. Somebody is working, for example, the Tesco as the somewhere, the bottle coming for the serve, until
Yeah.
and just he refused to not allow to be served, make the excuse, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Then he gets a reward of them.
If he did it for the sake of Allah, he gets the reward. If he did it for the sake of Allah, he gets the reward for not serving it.
I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
But what you have to remember is there are also other people, even non-Muslims, ethically. They say for ethical reasons, I don't touch interest, there's no reward in that. There may be a reward in the dunya, like if a person stays away from alcohol because of health concerns, there's a reward in the dunya, meaning you don't become ill. But is there a reward in the akhirah? No, because your intention did not extend to the akhirah. So there's no reward, and therefore it's not called ibadah.
You know that example Uncle gave, let's say if you're like scared of losing your job or like you fear your manager a bit and then you still serve the customer, is that shirk?
No, that's khawf muharram.
Oh.
No, that is khawf muharram. Because when you say you're scared of your manager, you don't mean my life, my death, and is in the hands of Allah. You just mean, look, he's going to find me, he's going to tell me off, I don't want to face the heat. You say this is khawf muharram. No. Now,
so I was wondering if someone was in a life and death situation, like you mentioned, if someone had a gun to their head and they uttered kufr what they believed in the heart. Now, because the Sharia allows that, if someone was then to you could say show chivalry or bravery and still not still say, oh, I believe in Allah, etc., then would that be rewarding or blameworthy? Because, like, say if they then get killed because of saying that.
the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man qutila duna dinihi fahuwa shaheed." Whoever is killed in defending his religion, he is a shaheed. وَمَنْ قُتِلَ دُونَ مَالِهِ فَهُوَ شَهِيد. And whoever is killed defending his property, because this is your right, he is a shaheed. وَمَنْ قُتِلَ دُونَ أَهْلِهِ فَهُوَ شَهِيد. And whoever is killed defending his family, he is a shaheed. But in this situation, you have to look at the possible effects of you saying that word of kufr or not. So, for example, Imam Ahmad, he refused to say the Qur'an is created. And the other ulama of his time, they said the Qur'an is created. They never believed in it. And some of them would use tawriyah, meaning they would say, the Qur'an, the Torah, the Injil, these are created. What were they referring to? Their fingers. These three are created. Because they feared saying the word, but at the same time they feared their life. But Imam Ahmad understood that if I say the Qur'an is created, even if it's threatening my life, and I'm allowed to say it in this situation, but the people behind me will accept this and they'll all be deviated. So in those situations you look at and if it's a danger upon you and your family, don't say it. But if it's like you're a scholar or a leader and there's got 1,000 people behind you, then you don't say it, and if you kill a shaheed, inshallah. So that was al-khawf. Okay, even khawf which is ibadah, remember we said there's khawf which is ibadah, even the khawf which is ibadah, it can be haram. So when can khawful ibadah be haram? And I'm talking about khawf of Allah, I'm not talking about khawf of shirk. Even the khawf of Allah, it can become haram. When is that? What do you think, brother? What do you think? So when can your fear of Allah becomes shirk, become haram, not shirk, become haram.
When you know but you're still doing it, like the wrong thing.
No.
When you commit a sin and you think Allah won't forgive you.
Yes, when your fear of Allah leads you to al-qunut min rahmatillah, when it leads you to losing hope in the mercy of Allah. So a person says, my fear of Allah is so much that I'm too scared to ask Him to forgive me. Now, no, this khawf is haram. Even though this is khawf al-ibadah, but it's not allowed in this situation. Allah said, لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. In fact, this is from the ploys and the plots of a shaitan. The point is that khawful ibadah, even that is two further types. That which is obligatory, and this is khawful sir, and then that which is haram, and that is fearing Allah so much that you lose hope in the mercy of Allah. And then we come to ar-raja. And ar-raja, hope, meaning hoping that which you desire from Allah. So hope, yani ar-raja, at-tama', is desiring something from Allah. And Allah subhanahu said, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. So from which angle is this ibadah? This ayah, where's the shahid that ar-raja is ibadah? If you read the meaning of the ayah, remember we mentioned 6 different angles. So from which angle is it ibadah? Yeah. From which angle? Remember we mentioned 6 different angles. Which one do you think? Sorry?
Is it perform righteous actions?
No, but we're talking about raja.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about raja here. Because
Is it like a reward to say whoever hopes to meet his Lord? So he's saying if you do that, you'll be able to meet your Lord.
No.
Is it the praise aspect?
No, Allah is praising people. Allah is praising those people who yarju liqa'a rabbi, those who have hope in the meeting of Allah, and that they should do righteous actions. Now, also, because at the end of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. So He orders them to do righteous action and have raja, and then warns them against a shirk, meaning shirk in raja. And therefore, hope, raja, is also an act of ibadah. So, directly to other than Allah, it is a shirk. However, the categories which we mentioned regarding al-khawf apply to raja as well. So there is a raja which is ibadah, and there is a raja which is haram, and there is a raja which is jaiz. So, what is the raja which is ibadah? Ultimate hope, with a level of dhul and khushu'. When you submit yourself in front of the one that you're hoping, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a raja which is ibadah. That level of hope, that level of raja, to direct it to other than Allah, it is a shirk. Now, also like a person hoping in the mercy of a deceased or a wali, etc., it is a shirk. What is the hope which is jaiz?
Natural hope.
Raja tabi'i. When I say to you, brothers, I hope that you'll all attend the lesson tomorrow. Raja tabi'i. Now, you ring somebody, and you say, look, I've got my walima, I need some help, I hope you'll be there for me when I need you. Raja tabi'i. And then where's the raja which is haram? What type of raja is haram? We said apply al-khawf and the types of al-khawf.
Is it like saying, you're a doctor, you're my only hope, I'm going to die, but only Allah?
No, that can become shirk. That can become shirk.
Is it when you're too lenient with sins, thinking?
No. Okay. When your hope in somebody makes you leave a wajib or do a haram, like khawf. We said khawf, if it means that you end up leaving a wajib or doing a haram, then it is khawf muharram, then also al-raja. For example, a person's sitting outside his employer's office, he just said that he's hoping he's going to get, he thinks if I go for salah, now because salah's time has come, he's going to find me. No, that's haram now. You have to pray your salah. You cannot Your khawf cannot override the obligation of as-salah. And then we come to at-tawakkul. And what's the evidence that tawakkul is ibadah? From those ayat, what's the evidence, what's the daleel that tawakkul is ibadah? Fadl.
Allah is linked here to being true believers.
Ahsan. So this is praise from Allah. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That if you're people of Iman, then have your tawakkul upon Allah. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising those people. And the second ayah, what's the second ayah? The second, where is the shahid in the second ayah? Yeah.
So he's praising.
No, he's connecting a reward. He's connecting a reward. No. He's saying, and whoever places tawakkul upon Allah, then my reward is I will be there for you, I will suffice you. Now he's attaching a reward to tawakkul. The fact, so this is the thought process. The fact that he has attached a reward to tawakkul means that he loves at-tawakkul. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a matter, it is ibadah. And therefore directing that ibadah to other than Allah, it is shirk and al-kufr. What is the meaning of at-tawakkul? At-tawakkul is صدق الاعتماد على الله بالثقة والأخذ بالأسباب. Write this down. At-tawakkul, it is صدق الاعتماد على الله. Having a truthful dependence upon Allah. At-tawakkul, it is صدق الاعتماد على الله. Having a truthful dependence upon Allah. مع الثقة به, along with complete trust in Him. والأخذ بالأسباب, along with fulfilling the asbab, the causes which Allah has placed upon the earth. التوكل, it is صدق الاعتماد على الله مع الثقة به مع الأخذ بالأسباب, to have a truthful dependence upon Allah and complete trust and confidence in Him, along with fulfilling the asbab. Now, the asbab, like I mentioned, if you want to get well, if you're going through an illness, do you just sit at home and say, I'm just going to have tawakkul upon Allah? No. You go to the doctor, you go to, you take certain precautions, you take certain medicines, etc. Now, and you place your tawakkul upon Allah. Or, if you want a child, do you sit at home and you say Allah is the one who gives children? No. You find someone to get married to, nikah, you fulfill the asbab to have children, and then you place your tawakkul upon Allah. If you want a rizq, do you sit at home and you say a rizq will come to me as it comes to the birds? No. You go out, you find a job, you work hard, you earn your money, and you have tawakkul upon Allah. So tawakkul has to fulfill both of these matters. Leaving it in the hands of Allah, and at the same time fulfilling the asbab which Allah has placed upon the earth. The ulama say that if a person concentrates on the asbab and he leaves out sidqul i'timadi ala Allah wa thiqati bihi, then they say hada naqsun fi tawheed. This is a deficiency in tawheed. And if a person turns towards sidqul i'timad wa thiqa and he leaves out the asbab, then this is naqsun fil aql. This is a deficiency in a person's intelligence. And a person does not know that Allah created this world with sabab and natija, cause and effect. That is the nature of sunnatullah. That is the nature of Allah upon this earth. There are causes and effects. And then the next, when it comes to tawakkul, similar to khawf and ar-raja, we could say something similar to at-tawakkul, except that there is also another form of tawakkul which is known as at-tawkeel. Another form of tawakkul which is known as at-tawkeel. At-tawkeel means that somebody is your wakeel, means somebody is representing you on your behalf. So when you say to somebody, look, I don't know, here's my papers, I'm depending on you, that you need to go and submit these papers for me and place my dependence upon you. What you mean by that is that you're acting as a wakeel on my behalf. You are acting as a representative on my behalf, please don't let me down. This is known as at-tawkeel, or meaning that person is a wakil for you. And then there is at-tawakkul, and then there is at-tawakkul. And at-tawakkul means when somebody is pretending at-tawakkul and he's not doing it. Like we mentioned, somebody says that I'm going to place my tawakkul upon Allah, I'm going to sit at home and my rizq will come to you. We say, no, this is not tawakkul. This is tawakkul. It's a fake tawakkul. You're pretending to be people of tawakkul and you're not people of tawakkul. This is taken from the statement of Umar radiallahu anhu. When the people of Yemen came and they would come and perform Hajj, and he saw a group of people from the Hujjaj and they were begging from the people, and they'd come from Yemen. And he said to them, why are you doing this? They said, Nahnu al-mutawakkilun ala Allah. We are those who rely upon Allah. He said, Bal antum al-mutawakkilun. You're the people who are pretending to have a tawakkul. Rather, you have to prepare yourselves, take your provision, and then you come for Hajj. So this is a tawakkul. And then he said, وَالدَّلِيلُ اتفضل.
ودليل الرغبة والرهبة والخشوع قوله تعالى إنهم كانوا يسارعون في الخيرات ويدعوننا رغبا ورهبا وكانوا لنا خاشعين.
So then he said الرغبة والرهبة والخشوع, and also these are all acts of ibadah. So الرغبة is desiring a reward, and الرهبة is fearing a punishment, and al-khushu' is al-dhul li'izmatillah. It is humility due to appreciating the greatness of Allah. Al-khushu', it is al-dhul li'izmatillah. Naam. Al-dhul meaning you become dhaleel because you appreciate that Allah is al-azim. Al-dhul li'izmatillah. And how do we know this is ibadah? Because Allah praises those people. In the Qur'an, He said they used to, meaning the awliya and the prophets and the messengers, yusari'una fil khairat. They were quick to do righteous actions, and they would call upon us with raghaba wa rahaba, and they were towards us khashi'een. So Allah praises the people of raghba, rahba wal khushu', and therefore having absolute raghba in other than Allah is shirk and kufr. And absolute rahba and absolute khushu', yani complete humility in front of creation, it is a shirk and kufr. And then the next one, he said al-khashya. And al-khashya is similar to al-khawf, except it is a level higher than khawf. So al-khashya, it is al-khawf al-mabni ala al-ilm wa al-ta'azim. Al-khashya is al-khawf al-mabni ala al-ilm wa al-ta'azim. It is fearing Allah, however your fear of Allah is based upon you exalting Him and knowing Him. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. That it is only the ulama amongst the people of true khashya of Allah. Why? Because they are ulama, they know about Him. They appreciate His azama, His greatness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. Do not have khashya of them, but have khashya of me. So where is the shahid in this ayah that khashya is ibadah? Where is it? Allah commands to have al-khashya, and He forbids having khashya of others. It shows us that it is ibadah. And then al-inaba. And al-inaba, it is ar-ruju' ila Allah. It is return back to Allah. To return to Allah with complete obedience. To return to Allah with complete obedience. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَنِيبُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ. Have inaba towards your Lord. وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ. And submit to Him. So, an inaba is ibadah because Allah commands with it in the Qur'an. The fact that He has commanded it means that He is pleased with it. If He is pleased with it, it is ibadah. Therefore, if you direct this ibadah to other than Allah, then it is a shirk. No. So a person having inaba to other than Allah is or shows that his heart is connected to other than Allah. So you only have inaba towards Allah because your heart is connected to Him. Now when your obedience is to other than Allah completely, that means your heart is connected to other than Allah, and then it becomes a shirk. And then the author mentioned al-isti'ana wal-isti'adha wal-istighatha. Now, al-isti'ana, it is talab al-awn. Al-isti'ana is talab al-awn. And al-awn, it is help. So, al-isti'ana, seeking help. And what do we say in the Quran? Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. So this is the evidence that that al-isti'ana is ibadah. Now, because Allah is praising those people who say Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. And in the hadith, إِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ, the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbaas radiallahu anhuma. Allah, the Prophet ordered with isti'ana. Therefore, it is ibadah. And as for isti'adha, it is talab al-awd. And al-awd is protection and refuge. Protection and refuge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Say, I seek refuge and protection in the Lord of the dawn, the break of dawn. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Say, I seek refuge and protection in the Lord of mankind. So Allah is ordering us to say, seek isti'adha from Him. So isti'ana talab al-awn, isti'adha talab al-awth, then istighatha talab al-ghawth. And that is seeking rescue. Seeking rescue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِذْ تَسْتَغِيثُونَ رَبَّكُمْ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ. When you sought rescue from your Lord and He answered you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising those people. This ayah refers to the battle of Uhud. Allah praises them that when you sought rescue from your Lord and your Lord helped you. Like, write down isti'adha is seeking help from Allah before the calamity occurs. Istighatha is seeking help from Allah after the calamity occurs. And isti'ana is general. So when you say A'udhu billah, I seek refuge and protection in Allah, meaning I seek refuge and protection in Allah before the calamity occurs, that He protects me from it ever occurring. And when you say Astaghithu billah, meaning I am already in trouble and I am seeking rescue from Allah. And this is talab al-ghawth. And then write down the conditions of dua apply to isti'ana, isti'adha, istighatha. And what did we mention? Hayyun, hadirun, qadirun, sababun. It applies to isti'ana, isti'adha, istighatha and isti'adha. And seeking dua from other than Allah, that which only Allah can give, is shirk. Therefore, seeking awn or seeking awd or seeking ghawth from other than Allah in that which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give, it is a shirk. Al-Muhim, the rulings of dua, it applies to the rulings of isti'ana, isti'adha, istighatha, because in essence it's the same thing. All of these things are a type of dua. Then after this, he mentioned al-dhabh. And al-dhabh, as you know, is the slaughtering of the animal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَالنُّسُكِ. Say, my salah and my nusuk. Nusuk meaning the slaughter of al-hajj. And my living and my dying is for Allah alone. Also in the hadith, لَعَنَ اللَّهِ مَنْ ذَبَحَ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. May the la'na of Allah be upon a person who slaughters for other than Allah. Meaning in the name of other than Allah. Therefore it is a shirk. And al-dhabh is different types. There's dhabh which is ibadah, and there's dhabh which is mustahab, and there's dhabh which is mubah, which is permitted. So the dhabh which is ibadah is like the dhabh of al-aqiqah, like the dhabh of udhiyah, and that is when the blood of the animal is spilled in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The spilling of the blood of the animal in the worship of Allah. So if a person slaughters an animal by the side of the grave, why is he doing it? Seeking protection and help from the person in the grave. Shirk and kufr. Person slaughters an animal in the name or the memory of a wali, shirk and kufr. Then there is dhabh which is mustahab, which is encouraged and recommended and rewarded for, and that is when a person slaughters an animal for the sake of a guest. What does that mean? In the name of Allah, but in order to honor his guest and in order to feed the poor. This is mustahab. And then there is a dhabh, which is mubah, permitted. And that is when a person slaughters an animal in the name of Allah for business. A butcher for buying, selling, to use the fur of the animal, for example, etc. To eat from, to cook with, that all is mubah, it's allowed. But in the name of Allah.
Mubah.
No.
Is it mubah?
Mubah, permitted, halal, jaiz. And then there is another. And another is taking an oath in the name of Allah. Meaning, a person obligates upon himself in the name of Allah that which is not obligatory. A person says, "Oh Allah, if you allow me to pass my exams, then I'm going to fast a day for your sake." Was that fasting obligatory upon you? No, it was not obligatory. But you obligated upon you by mentioning the name of Allah. You say, "Lillahi alayya an asuma yawman in fa'ala kada wa kada." Upon me, by the name of Allah, is this and this, if this and this happens. طيب. What's the hukm of another? The ulama say that another is disliked. It's disliked for a person to take a vow in the name of Allah. In fact, they say that it is a type of stinginess. It is a type of bukhul. Why is it that if Allah allows me to pass my exam, then I'm going to fast? You know, what type of dealing is this with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it is. Yes.
Do you know the mother of Maryam alayhi salam, she made?
One second. So I said, before taking the nadar, they say it is something which is bukhul. Now, however, after the nadar has been taken, then it is wajib for it to be fulfilled. After the nadar which has been taken, then it is wajib for it to be fulfilled. If you've taken the nadar, now you have to fulfill the nadar as long as it is halal. As for nadar which is haram, then it's not allowed. As for the sharia of those who came before us, then they had their own sharia. And the sharia of the Prophet who came before, they had their own sharia. And if a person took a nadar in days of kufr, let's say he wasn't a Muslim and he took a nadar in the name of Allah, but he wasn't a Muslim, he believed that there's one God or one creator out there. He said, in the name of that God and that creator, I vow for myself this and this. When he enters into Islam, he has to fulfill that nadar. And the evidence for this is the hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu. He came to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, inni nadartu fil jahiliyyati an a'takifa yawman." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, I have taken a vow in Jahiliyyah that I would perform a day of i'tikaf." And remember, the people of Jahiliyyah, they knew that Allah existed. And the Messenger said, "Oh, fi binadrik, fulfill your vow." So the vow has to be kept if it was done in the name of Allah. If it was done in the name of Allah.
If another is fulfilled in the name of Allah, is it still disliked?
Sorry?
Is it still disliked?
No, it's disliked to make it, and it's disliked to say the words before it happens. Because this shouldn't be our dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you give, then I will do. Now, but after you've done it and then you fulfill it, then you're rewarded for it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised those people who fulfill their nadar. He said, "Yufuna bin nadri." They fulfill their nadar. They fulfill their vows. And so, taking a vow in other than the name of Allah, it is shirk and kufr. Because why do you take a vow in the name of Allah? Because of your ta'zeem of Allah. So therefore, taking in other than the name of Allah, it shows ta'zeem of other than Allah.
In terms of knowing the religion and that which is mandatory to know, is it obligatory upon a Muslim to understand the preservation aspect of the Quran and the Hadith, or do they just believe in it and that's it? They don't need to know how it was preserved at all. They just believe that it is preserved and that's it.
So if you mean how it was preserved being throughout history.
No. Is it obligatory for a Muslim to know the general understanding of how the Quran was actually preserved?
Yeah.
Or is it not obligatory? Do they just
No,
have to believe?
what's obligatory is for a Muslim to know that the Quran remains preserved. Now, but the details of how, or even the history of how, it's not wajib. The Muslim reads the Quran and he reads that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we are the ones who read the Quran, and we are going to preserve it. So he has iman that Allah is going to preserve the Quran. That's the obligation upon him. In terms of the details and how, that's not an obligation. If there's no more questions, we have a lesson tomorrow, I believe. After Asr, inshallah, we'll begin the second principle.
Could you say what inaba was again?
Al-inaba ar-ruju'u ila Allah min ma'siyatin ila ta'a. Ar-ruju'u ila Allah. Afwan. No, let me reword that. There's a tawbah and al-inaba are very close in meaning. A tawbah and al-inaba are very close in meaning. A tawbah, it is ar-ruju' ila Allah min al-ma'siyah ila ta'a. It is returning back to Allah from a state of disobedience to a state of obedience. This is the meaning of at-tawbah. Al-inaba, it is luzumu ta'atillah. It is abiding by the obedience of Allah. So al-inaba is higher than at-tawbah and it comes after tawbah. So tawbah is you are doing a sin. Now when we say repentance, what does it mean? You were doing a sin and then you remembered Allah, you abandoned the sin and you repented to Allah and you came back towards Him. Then inaba is luzum al-ta'a, then abiding by that obedience, staying away from going back to the sin and staying close to Allah. That is al-inaba. Now, but there's an overlapping meaning between at-tawbah and al-inaba.
What was the difference between khashiyah and khawf?
Khashya is al-khawf al-mabni al-ta'zeem wal-ilm. It is fear, but based upon a person's knowledge of Allah and exalting Him. Meaning, Muslims in general, they fear Allah. But those who study more Tawheed and have more knowledge of Allah and memorize more of His Book of Allah have an increase of their khawf. This is called khashiyah. And why is it that they have an increase of khawf? Because of what they know about Him. They're studying His ayat, they know His names and His attributes, they're studying His ahkam, they're studying the rewards and the punishments. This increases them in the khawf. This is called al-khashiyah.
So how can someone have khashiyah for someone other than Allah? Do they like study with their life or something?
Khashiyah and khawf is overlap between them. Khashiyah and khawf is overlap between them. But the point is that if a person's khawf is based upon the ta'zeem of other than Allah, then it's shirk.
Assalamu alaikum. I try to explain to you, but if no, you can make the question and answer as well. You understand Urdu Punjabi as well? Rasulullah says, इंसान सबसे करीब अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला के होता है जब सजदे में होता है. तो इबादत है सवाल. I can make the question to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma as'aluka al-khayra kulla ad-dunya wal akhirah, Allahumma ighfir li ummi wa abi wa hakaza wa hakaza.
Can you do it in the sujood?
Yeah.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
The Messenger sallallahu alaihi in the salah, there's two times for general dua. One is in the sujood and one is before at-taslim. So these are times for, especially times for dua, in the sujood and before at-taslim. And to answer your question, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told the Sahaba that begin with at-tashahhud and then send as-salah upon me, and then he said ثُمَّ لَيَتَخَيَّرُ مِنَ الْمَسْأَلَةِ مَا شَاءَ, and then let a person choose whatever mas'ala he wants, meaning whatever su'al, whatever dua he wants. So before the taslim and also in the sujood, a person can choose from whatever dua, any mas'ala that he wants. Now, whether it's from the Qur'an or not from the Qur'an, and whether the dua is a dua of the Qur'an, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا, or it's a dua from your own self, then you can make that dua.
Was some dua is Quranic ayat, but a niyat is
Dua. Yeah.
dua.
So that counts as a dua. Let's say if a person was in a state of janaba, and a person wants to make رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً, is he allowed to do it? Yeah. Why? Because he's not reciting the Quran, he's making a dua. His niyyah is that this is a dua which I'm making, this is not the tilawah of the Quran. Oh, yeah, I mean, any dua, which is said with the niyyah of dua and not of tilawah, then you don't require ghusl for it or tahara for it.
In sujood is okay?
Any dua. It's in sujood, before the taslim, du'as of the Quran, personal du'as, with any wording is allowed. Dalil, like you said, أقرب ما يكون العبد إلى ربه وهو في السجود. And then he said, فاجتهدوا فيه بالدعاء. And the other hadith which I mentioned, وَلِيَتَخَيَّرْ مِنَ الْمَسْأَلَةِ مَا يَشَاءُ. Then let him choose from his dua wherever he wants. And من المسألة means su'al, meaning dua. Yeah, تفضل.
You know how you can do it in sujood and before taslim, can I do it in English?
Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best.
So
That
is it best to avoid it?
I said Allah knows best. And read the fatwa of the ulama, see what they say. Allah knows best.
Can you say in Amiyya, colloquial Arabic?
As long as it's Arabic.
So even if it's colloquial?
Yeah, colloquial mean what?
Like a language of the people. So it's slang Arabic.
As long as it's Arabic. Yeah, as long as it's Arabic. Even the Salaf spoke with Amiyya, like what we consider to be Amiyya. You find some of the words of the Salaf, ish, meaning ayi shay, aywa, meaning ay wallah. You find it in the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the asl of Amiyya is always from Fusha. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. I'll see you tomorrow inshallah.